Hi guys, today I'm talking about 10 skills every mom needs to have in order to survive being a mom. I know that everything I'm going to say is basically going to be basic because as a working mom with 2 kids and running a family, these are skills that every mom needs to have in order to survive being a mom. Because generally, if you decide to wing it every single day, in as much as I always say wing it, you can wing it, but the truth is that if you decide to wing it every single day, you'll discover that you get choked up and there'll be a lot of things that will become overwhelming. So basically, these are the few skills I think every mom, every person who has a child should have. Number one, I'll say you need to know how to cook. Not just cooking a meal that only you can eat, but a decent meal that your family can eat and enjoy. And why? Because children, most especially toddlers, are very blunt, and if they discover that this food is not nice, you discover that children are actually not eating, not just because they are picky eaters, but because they actually don't like the food given to them. I discover that I know sometimes children go outside and go and eat foods from their neighbors, but most times from my experience I discover that my son doesn't eat outside. Name say would rather. My son doesn't eat outside. If at all my son is giving food to eat outside, it's based on my permission. I've told him, okay, you can have this food, but normally he would never eat outside. And I also know that he does this because obviously he knows his mommy's food is very nice, and whenever he comes back home, he always has a decent meal to eat at home. Secondly, I would say you need to learn proper hygiene. Clean your house, learn to put things in order, learn to make everywhere tidy and look presentable. I'm not ignorant of the fact that as mothers, most times you get to have kids, like when you clean the place today, tomorrow you're still cleaning the place. Yes, but there's a difference between a house being scattered and a house being dirty. Do you understand? You can come to my house and find my place scattered, but you would never come to my house and find it dirty. Do you get? You can come to place and find it disorganized because my daughter is probably throwing things around or dropping things one place or the other where it shouldn't be, because she's at the point where she's opening cupboards now and picking things and dropping it anywhere. There's a time I found my phone in her school bag. So right now, that's the face we're in right now. But I'm very sure you can never come to my house and find dirty. Like, dirty is not the word, but yes, a little bit scattered here and there because of my children. But you need to have good hygiene, because you discover that when you have proper hygiene, your kids will hardly fall sick, because most times they're picking things from the floor, putting into their mouths. But when the chances of always having a sick child is reduced to the barest minimum. Also, with hygiene, it comes to your kids' clothes, your clothes. Most times you have to know how to be able to wash clothes based on their colors, not washing dark colored clothes with bright colored clothes, because at some point you discover that all your clothes are faded, all the clothes of your children are faded, all the clothes of your household are faded, everybody's looking like they're putting on rags when you basically just bought the clothes recently. So you have to learn how to keep your place tidy, keep your home organized. Also, I also discovered that some persons, when things pour on the floor, like when maybe food spills on the floor, you get to take your mop, you mop the floor, and then you just get to hang the mop. You don't get to wash your mop, and then tomorrow you get to use the mop to mop the whole house and discover the house is smelling. Because and most of the times, most of our domestic help we get to do this. But I also know that if a person comes into your house and sees your house a certain way, in most cases they never make it better, they make it worse. So if you want your house to be in a proper condition, like a neat, want to have a neat space all the time, you have to set the pace in your home. You have to be the one to tell them, don't do this and don't do that, and then they also have to see that you don't tolerate such. I'll also say that no one will cherish your home as much as you do. No one will, even you as a person, no one will cherish you as much as you cherish yourself. No one will love you as much as you love yourself. So if you treat your home with love and you treat your home as a holy sanctuary, anybody who walks into your home will also treat it with such love and with such respect. But if you fail to treat your home with respect and with love, you'll discover that even your domestic staff that come into your house will treat it as, would give the barest minimum or even no effort at all, because you know that okay, this person is just scattered and anyhow. My next point would be learning how to drive. I feel like driving is a life skill, especially when you have children. Sometimes when I always hear people say, oh, this woman, why are you backing your baby on your back when there is a car at home? I was that kind of person previously. Why? Because I had a lot of fear in driving. In as much as I learned how to drive as early as when I got married. That's when my husband taught me how to drive, and then later I went to a driving school. But I always had phobia for driving, and then I had an accident and I stopped driving permanently, and then I ended up booking boats all the time to go out. Anyway, I don't even go out a lot, so it's enough. I don't even need to go out. I don't have to go out. But when I have to go out, I just start thinking, okay, how much is boats? And sometimes boats is not so convenient because of time factor. Sometimes you go to some locations where, like in the markets, where it's hard to find boats, where the boat rider will park and things like that. But when you have a car, you'll be able to drive yourself to wherever destination you want to be. And then if you're the primary caregiver of your children, like to your children, especially when you have a partner who is not always around you to work, you'll be able to take your kids around, take your kids to school, drop them off, and everybody's convenient, like in a convenient way. You're not thinking of, especially when there's a car available, you're not thinking of, okay, how you're going to start dragging your children out when there's a car available. But there will be a convenient means of transportation, which is basically, and driving is actually very convenient, especially when you have children. You're not dragging one person on the road, the other person is trying to, toddlers are a lot to move with. Even when I sometimes want to just stroll with my kids around in the environment, I discover that there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh my god, let's just walk back home because I am already tired and exhausted. Okay, I mean, you need to learn how to have an organized structure. Like I said earlier in the video, most times I always say, oh, sometimes when you get tired, just wing it. But the truth is that you cannot wing it every day. You need to have a plan. If it's a full timetable, you need to have a full timetable. I know sometimes you may not follow the full timetable because you may want to cook something else, but if you have a full timetable, you actually know that you're not running out of option. Also, full timetable also helps you in stocking your house, because when you have a full timetable, you're able to tell, okay, when is this running out, we need to get this soon. Or even at the end of the month, you get to buy things based on your full timetable, because this is what your family needs to eat for the month. So when you have a full timetable, you get to do things in a very organized pattern. You get to do things in an orderly way, and not just a full timetable, even schedule for your children. At a particular time, you tell them, okay, this is bedtime, this time to eat, because most times children just want, especially toddlers, they want to have their way a lot of times. But when there is a full timetable, you'll be able to tell them, okay, this is what we are going to do today, this is the time we are going to sleep today, this is the time, and everybody knows their plan. And immediately you put off the TV, everybody rests, especially my son, because that's the time he needs to go to bed. So at the end of the month, make sure you buy all your basics, because I've discovered that a lot of times you get to think about, like, I'm talking about your personal basics. I'm not talking about now, I'm not talking about your children, I'm not talking about what your family needs. I'm talking about you on your own, your personal basics, like toiletries, your perfume, clothes. Let me not say clothes necessarily, you don't have to buy clothes every month. I'm talking about like the basics you need for the month: perfumes, toiletries, toiletries falls on that, sanitary pad, everything you need for the month. So that as moms, I discovered that there's a lot of times where you feel like, okay, you buy it later, you keep on procrastinating about yourself, and you discover that the things you really need you don't have at the end of the day. And then these are the ways you end up neglecting yourself. A lot of persons don't plan to neglect themselves, but life just happened and you see yourself being neglected. Example, maybe at the end of the month, when you receive bulk money from your spouse, and then you end up thinking about just buying things for the house, and then you forget about yourself. Why? Because you feel like, okay, you can buy yours later, and then because of your busy schedule, you don't end up getting things for yourself. And then in the middle of the month, the things you thought you don't have them anymore, and you're now stranded. My next point would be, you need to learn how to manage your home. You need to learn how to manage your finances. You need to learn how to manage your home, because most times when you tell yourself, okay, I want to save this money, and at the end of the day, the basic things you need at home you're not able to afford, because you ended up diverting the money you have for other things. You don't get to have the things you really need at home, like getting food stuff in bulk. I think it's very economical one, and I also feel like it saves you a lot of stress, because you don't have to be running around, okay, today I don't have salt, I'm running around to go and buy salt. Today I don't have Maggi, I'm running around to buy Maggi. Or today my daughter doesn't have milk, again, you're running around to buy milk. But at this point, if and or diaper, if you actually tell yourself, because at this point you already know a pattern in your house, and then you tell yourself, okay, we use this amount of milk in a month, and then you try to buy that amount of milk, or you get to buy it quarterly. I said quarterly, maybe you get to buy it every 2 weeks, so that you don't get to run around in the middle of things. And then always helps check your cupboards and check inventory of things in your home, so that at the end of the day you get to know, okay, this is about to finish, and then it doesn't ever catch you off guard, because you already have a means of restocking, because you already have it at the back of your mind that, okay, this is about to finish, this is what I need in my house, and this is what my family needs. The next point I would say, if you have kids and if you're running a home, you need to learn life-saving tips, especially when you have toddlers who are always putting things in their mouths, trying to choke themselves, or even trying to I don't want to use the word I want to use, but you need to learn life-saving skills, CPR methods. You need to learn that. Also, when my son was younger, he poured when I was cooking, he pushed, he dragged the oven. Like, I use this gas cooker that has an oven attached to it, so he dragged the door of the oven, and then the food I was making spilled, like the pot fell and it spilled on him. But by the grace of God, it didn't touch his face, but it touched his thighs and then his arm. And immediately I took him to the shower, and I was in the shower. Even as much as I was screaming for help, I was in the shower. And now my son doesn't have any scar on his body due to that incident. Also, when the child is sick, it's not every time you take the child to the hospital for admission, especially when it's not a critical condition. When the child is running temperature, you know what to do, like cold water compress with a towel, and then you expose the body of the child. All that you can learn online, you can read it up, you can check on YouTube. There are a lot of doctors who talk about all this, so you can learn it. You don't really have to go for a course to do it. You can learn all this online. The next thing I would say is, for safety measures too, learn to know where the control switch of your home is, how to turn it off, how to turn it off. I know most times we have gatemen in our houses where you can easily access and ask them, especially when there's a changeover, like when they bring the lights or when the gen needs to go off. There's always a gateman at home who is there to change over powers. But if you have basic knowledge of all these things, you'll be able to do all these things on your own without asking for help. And at the same time, in cases of emergency, you'll be able to do this on your own, even without somebody being there. Because sometimes before you look for someone who is going to be there to save your child, especially sometimes situations where you see your child, maybe children being children, plug a metal into a socket, and then child is shocking right in your very before. You cannot do anything about it because you don't even know where the changeover switch is. You've never learned where the changeover switch in your house is. Those basic things, you need to know your house in and out, where the changeover switch is. You need to know where it is, and then be able to control it. I would also say basic grooming method. You need to learn how to do that, like making your child's hair. You don't really need to know how to make the perfect braid, but at least packing your child's hair to make it look decent, so that it's not every time when you need to go out, especially cases of emergency, where you'll be looking for a hairdresser to make your child's hair, or where you end up or your child even ends up going out scruffy because you don't even know what to do. I feel like things like gel, edge controls, leave-in conditioner, rubber bands, like this little rubber band they use in packing children's hair, should always be in the house, not just for your child but also for you. Because there's sometimes maybe your hair is not looking so put together, but trust me, a good ponytail packed your hair up, by packing your hair up, will make you look good, take you from 1 to 100 immediately. A good ponytail, and that by just doing it at home. You don't need to go to a salon to tell them to pack your hair or to apply gel to your hair to make a good ponytail. You can do it at home. Learn how to do it. My most important point, I would say, for someone who has a child or is planning to have a child, my most important point in all of this is learn how to pray. Learn how to hand your family into the hands of God. Not just someone who has a child or plans to have a child, but someone who also is planning to build a family. You need to learn how to pray. You need to learn how to hand over your family to the hands of God. You need to learn how to put God first in your home, because there are sometimes where things will shake you. There's sometimes when life will happen and you become overwhelmed. Sometimes when your child is sick and you can't even explain it. Why is my child always sick or falling sick? But sometimes when you pray about, not sometimes, most times when you pray about it, the sickness will not go immediately, but you start feeling lighter in your heart, and then the thought of all these negative thoughts. Sometimes your child is having headaches, or maybe your child has headache, and then you start thinking of the worst. Maybe does my child have brain damage? Those devilish thoughts that comes from the devil will start planting its place in your heart, especially if you don't know your place in Christ. So I would say, learn how to pray, learn to know your God better, create a personal relationship with God, not just for yourself but for your household. Teach your household, your children, how to pray. Teach your children the word of God. Little by little, you may think they don't understand, but the truth is that they listen. These children are smarter than you think. So it's very, very important to actually learn how to pray. Learn how to put God first in the center of your life. Learn how to build a life where Christ is the center of your home. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. Bye. Bye, guys.